Hello and welcome back to Sarah's Country Cottage. Now, today is going to be a little bit different, for I'm going to tell you a story. My first love of thatch cottages was from being told these stories, the most enchanting stories that my mother read to me as a little girl, and that she read when she was a little girl. For those books were hers. They were old books. Now I don't have those today, but you can still buy copies of them, new ones, beautiful ones. So I'm going to turn the camera around. In fact, I'm going to give it to my husband to film. I've got a coffee ready to drink. The fire is lit. There's candles, lots of lamps, so hopefully we can have a cozy few minutes together, and I'm going to introduce you to my first love of books. So just bear with me. So as I was saying, here's my brew ready. This is the Easter mug we're still using. I got these from TK Maxx. One for me and one for Robert to use over the Easter period. I really love it. My favourite things, bunnies and nests. So here we are in our cosy little sitting room. There's the fire lit. Got this lovely brass lamp the other week in Kendal from Nutshell. I've spoke about that shop before. This time we went with my mum. And across from there I've got a little glass lamp lit. So the fire's there. And now I'm going to show you. Now I've got a cozy quilt on my knee. And of course the first book I loved reading as a child that Mum read to me is of course Milly-Molly-Mandy by Joyce Lancaster Brisley. My mum and I have multiple copies of Milly-Molly-Mandy. We both bought this one together, one each, years ago from Waterstones. It's a lovely big book, so it's perfect because I can easily see the words and I can show you. Now, oh, do you like my bookmark? Do you recognise it? Oh, the thread's getting caught. Look, it's Wilfred from Bramley Hedge. Let's move this. So, here is the map of where Milly-Molly-Mandy lived, the village. So here we have the nice white cottage with the thatched roof where Milly-Molly-Mandy lives. And it tells you little places of where things happened throughout the different stories. The meadow where Milly-Molly-Mandy and Billy Blunt practice racing, and the barn where she gives a party. And then here is the Mug's cottage where her best friend, little friend Susan, lives. Now Billy Blunt, her other best friend, he lives with Mr. and Mrs. Blunt in the corn shop. There's the blacksmith's forge and cottage. And here we have the big white house. And then we've got the school down here in the corner. There's a few little shops. The grocer's, the baker's, Mrs. Muggin's shop, that's where Jilly lives. Postman's cottage. It really is so enchanting. And this is actually being coloured in watercolour. For initially all the books are just in black and white, with black and white illustrations. But I thought today I'd get this big book out and show you the coloured versions. So without further ado, let's turn it over and then we'll begin. Once upon a time there was a little girl. She had a father and a mother and a grandpa and a grandma and an uncle and an auntie, and they all lived together in a nice white cottage with a thatched roof. This little girl had short hair and short legs and short frocks, pink and white striped cotton in summer and red serge in winter. But her name wasn't short at all. It was Millicent Margaret Amanda. But father and mother and grandpa and grandma and uncle and auntie couldn't very well call out Millicent Margaret Amanda every time they wanted her, so they shortened it to Milly-Molly-Mandy, which is quite easy to say. Now everybody in the nice white cottage with the thatched roof had some particular job to do, even Milly-Molly-Mandy. Father grew vegetables in the big garden by the cottage. Mother cooked the dinners and did the washing. Grandpa took the vegetables to market in his pony cart. Grandma knitted socks and mittens and nice warm woolies for them all. Uncle kept cows to give them milk and chickens to give them eggs, and Auntie sewed frocks and shirts for them and did the sweeping and the dusting. And Milly-Molly-Mandy, what did she do? Well, Milly-Molly-Mandy's legs were short, as I've told you, but they were very lively. They were just right for running errands. So Milly-Molly-Mandy was quite busy fetching and carrying things and taking messages. One fine day, Milly-Molly-Mandy was in the garden playing with Toby the dog, when Father poked his head out from the other side of the big row of beans and said, "Milly-Molly-Mandy, run down to Mr. Mogg's cottage and ask for the trowel that he borrowed for me." So Milly-Molly-Mandy said, "Yes, Father," and ran in to get her hat. At the kitchen door was Mother with a basket of eggs in her hand, and when she saw Milly-Molly-Mandy, she said, "Let's take a moment and let's look at them all." So here we are with Milly-Molly-Mandy and Auntie, Uncle, Mother, Father, Grandma and Grandpa. Now Mother and Uncle are brother and sister. Let's carry on. So she was at the kitchen door when Mother, with a basket of eggs in her hand, when she saw Milly-Molly-Mandy, she said, "Milly-Molly-Mandy, run down to Mrs. Mogg's and give her those eggs. She's got visitors." So Milly-Molly-Mandy said, "Yes, Mother," and she took the basket. "Trowel for Father, eggs for Mother," she thought to herself. And then Grandpa came up and said, "Milly-Molly-Mandy, please get me a ball of string from Miss Muggins's shop. Here's a penny." So Milly-Molly-Mandy said, "Yes, Grandpa," and took the penny, thinking to herself, "Trowel for Father, eggs for Mother, string for Grandpa." And as she passed through the kitchen, Grandma, who was sitting in her armchair knitting, said, "Milly-Molly-Mandy, will you get me a skein of red wool? Here's a sixpence." So Milly-Molly-Mandy said, "Yes, Grandma," and she took the sixpence. Trowel for Father, eggs for Mother, string for Grandpa, red wool for Grandma, she whispered over to herself. And as she went into the passage, Uncle came striding up in a hurry. "Oh, Milly-Molly-Mandy," said Uncle, "run like a good girl to Mr. Blunt's shop and tell him I'm waiting for the chicken feed that he promised to send." So Milly-Molly-Mandy said, "Yes, Uncle," and thought to herself, "Trowel for Father, eggs for Mother, string for Grandpa, red wool for Grandma, and chicken feed for Uncle." As she got her hat off the peg, Auntie called out from the parlour where she was dusting, "Is that Milly-Molly-Mandy? Will you get me a packet of needles, dear? Here's a penny." So Milly-Molly-Mandy said, "Yes, Auntie," and she took the penny, thinking to herself, "Trowel for Father, eggs for Mother, string for Grandpa, red wool for Grandma, chicken feed for Uncle, needles for Auntie. Oh, I do hope there won't be any more." But there was nothing else. So Milly-Molly-Mandy started out down the path, and when she came to the gate, Toby the dog capered up, looking very excited at the thought of a walk. But Milly-Molly-Mandy eyed him solemnly and said, "Trowel for Father, eggs for Mother, string for Grandpa, red wool for Grandma, chicken feed for Uncle, needles for Auntie. No, Toby, you mustn't come now. I've too much to think about, but I promise to take you for a walk when I come back." So she left Toby on the other side of the gate, and she set off down the road with the basket and the pennies and the sixpence. Presently she met a little friend, and the little friend said, "Hello, Milly-Molly-Mandy, I've got a new seesaw. Oh, do come on it with me." But Milly-Molly-Mandy looked at her solemnly and said, "Trowel for father, eggs for mother, string for grandpa, red wool for grandma, chicken feed for uncle, needles for auntie." "No, Susan, I can't come now. I'm busy, but I'd like to come when I get back after I've taken Toby for a walk." But just being interrupted by the clock chiming. It's 8 o'clock. I hope it doesn't disturb. Anyway, we'll continue. So Milly-Molly-Mandy went on her way with the basket and the pennies and the sixpence. Soon she came to the Moggs' cottage. "Please, Mrs. Moggs, can I have the trowel for father? And here are some eggs from mother," she said. Mrs. Moggs was very much obliged indeed for the eggs. She fetched the trowel and a piece of seed cake for Milly-Molly-Mandy's own self, and Milly-Molly-Mandy went on her way with the empty basket. Next she came to Miss Muggins' little shop. "Please, Miss Muggins, can I have a ball of string for grandpa and a skein of red wool for grandma?" So Miss Muggins put the string and the wool into Milly-Molly-Mandy's basket and took a penny and a sixpence in exchange. So that left Milly-Molly-Mandy with 1 penny. And Milly-Molly-Mandy, she couldn't remember what that penny was for. "Sweeties, perhaps?" said Miss Muggins, glancing at the row of glass bottles on the shelf. But Milly-Molly-Mandy shook her head. "No," she said, "it can't be chicken feed for uncle, because that would be more than a penny, only I haven't got to pay for it." "Well, it must be sweeties," said Miss Muggins. "No," said Milly-Molly-Mandy, "but I'll remember soon. Good morning, Miss Muggins." So Milly-Molly-Mandy went on to Mr. Blunt's and gave him uncle's message. And then she sat down on the step and thought what the penny could be for, and she couldn't remember. But she remembered one thing. "It's for auntie," she thought, "and I love auntie." And she thought for just a little while longer, and then suddenly she sprang up and she went back into Miss Muggins' shop. "I've remembered," she said. "It's needles for auntie." So Miss Muggins put the packet of needles into the basket and took the penny, and Milly-Molly-Mandy set off for home. "That's a good little messenger to remember all those things," said Mother when she got there. They were just going to begin dinner. "I thought you were only going with my eggs." "She went for a trowel," said Father. "And my string," said Grandpa. "And my wool," said Grandma. "And my chicken feed," said Uncle. "And my needles," said Auntie. They all laughed, and Grandpa, feeling in his pocket, said, "Well, here's another errand for you. Go and get yourself some sweeties." So after dinner, Toby had a nice walk with his mistress and got some sweets. And then Milly-Molly-Mandy and little friend Susan had a lovely time on the seesaw, chatting and eating raspberry drops and feeling very happy and contented indeed. And here they are on the seesaw, Milly-Molly-Mandy up in the air, and here's little friend Susan, and here's Toby over the dog. And can you see what he's looking at? He can smell those raspberry drops. So I hope you enjoyed this beautiful little book. I took the dust jacket off because I thought it'd make it easier for me to read. And even the inside cover is so beautiful. So now that it's time to wish you farewell, and I do hope you enjoyed this little story. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.